Okay. So, listeners send in some notes,
Yeah.
right? And they're about like what makes a country great. Quotes, obviously. So we're diving into those.
Yeah, it's almost like a blueprint. Like someone sat down and said, "These are the things."
Yeah, exactly. Like a recipe.
Yeah.
It's super interesting. And it's not like a super long document. It's like notes. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
So it'd be fun to kind of like break it down and, yeah, just kind of see, like, do these points, do they hold up? What do they even mean? Let's dig in. The first one that really jumped out, at least for me, was this idea of oneness of God.
Okay.
And it talks about tawhid.
Oh.
So for those who maybe aren't familiar, that's like the Islamic concept of believing in one God.
Right. Right.
And I can see how like having that shared faith could be really powerful. It's like a common ground,
Absolutely. I mean, Tawhid can definitely be a unifying force. It gives people a sense of purpose, can guide their values, even like shape laws and stuff. But, we have to be careful, right? Because like history's shown us that even when people are trying to create religious unity, sometimes it can,
Go wrong.
yeah, it can go wrong. It can lead to like pushing out minorities, even persecution.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, unity's great, but not if it means stomping on individual freedom, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, moving on. The next point is all about like moral guidance.
Okay.
So the notes are basically saying that Islamic teachings, they give you this whole ethical framework. Like, it's not just about personal stuff, but also how you treat others, social justice, all that.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it is true that Islamic teachings are pretty comprehensive. Like, they cover a lot of ground.
You do, yeah.
And that can be really good, right? It can be like a moral compass, help people make good choices, reduce crime, promote fairness. I mean, you see a lot of emphasis on charity in Islam, too.
Right, right.
But then again, like, how these teachings actually play out, it can really differ, depending on where you are, the culture. What one society sees as ethical might not be the same for another.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so the third point here, it's about sense of community.
Mm-hmm.
And they specifically talk about the Ummah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about the global community of Muslims, right?
Yeah.
The notes seem to be saying that just by being part of that, you have this like automatic support system.
Yeah, and the Ummah is like a powerful concept. I mean, it really does create a sense of belonging. Like Muslims around the world, no matter where they're from, they're connected by their faith. And that leads to some amazing things you see, like huge amounts of charity, cooperation across borders, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But even with that strong sense of community, we still see divisions within the Muslim world, political stuff, cultural clashes.
Right.
It shows that shared faith isn't like a magic wand, It doesn't erase all those complex realities.
Exactly, yeah. It's not like, oh, we all believe in one God, so no more conflict. Right, that'd be great, but
Right.
not that simple.
Yeah.
So, okay, moving right along, we get to this idea of intellectual appeal. And the notes, they talk about the Quran and, Prophet Muhammad's teachings as being intellectually stimulating.
Right. I mean, the Quran, for Muslims, it's the word of God. So that's huge. It's where they get spiritual guidance, but it also has historical stories, prompts philosophical thought.
Yeah.
And Prophet Muhammad's teachings, they sort of build on that, offer practical advice, ethical examples, So for many Muslims, engaging with all of this, it's like a mental workout. It pushes them to think critically, debate ideas.
Makes sense.
And, historically, this emphasis on knowledge in Islamic societies, it's led to some incredible advancements.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Think about, science, math, philosophy, a lot of contributions there.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes you think about how faith and intellect, they're not always separate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they go hand in hand. Okay, so last but not least, we come to beauty and harmony. The notes are highlighting Islamic art, stuff like calligraphy, architecture, music. They're saying it's all about inspiration, beauty.
Yeah. And you can't deny that.
Right.
I mean, Islamic art is famous for its detail, the symmetry, the way it reflects creation.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be really powerful, It can bring peace, evoke a sense of wonder. It can also be a source of cultural pride. Think about those stunning mosques, the tile work, the poetry. It all comes together to create something beautiful.
It makes me think of when I visited the Alhambra in Spain.
Oh, wow.
I was just blown away by the beauty, the craftsmanship. It was truly awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
So we got these 5 elements: oneness, guidance, community, intellect, and beauty. The notes seem to be saying these are like the keys to a successful nation. What do you think?
Well, they definitely have the potential to contribute to a nation's well-being. They can promote unity, ethical behavior, a sense of belonging, intellectual curiosity, all of that. But we have to remember these are just pieces of a much bigger puzzle. It's
Yeah.
not like a simple formula.
Yeah. It's way more complicated than that.
Absolutely. A nation's success also depends on its economic policies, its government, whether people have access to resources, how it interacts with other countries.
Yeah.
And of course, you can't forget the cultural and historical context. What works for one nation might totally backfire for another.
That's such a good point. It's like this whole web of interconnected things.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, these five principles, they're interesting. They're definitely food for thought, but they're not like a guaranteed recipe
hmm
for national greatness. There's so much more to it.
for sure. And it's a story that's still being written. We've seen that each of these principles, they have their nuances, their complexities. It's really fascinating and deserves a deeper look, honestly.
I totally agree. And on that note, we want to hear from you. Like thinking about your own values, what do you think are the things that a country really needs to thrive? Where do faith, community, art fit into that vision? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.